Hello there, and welcome to the Alberta Update, a first-hand look at what's happening in your province. I'm your host, Bruce McAllister. Thank you for being with us today. As always, we've got a couple of great ministers coming up on the program. Minister Joseph Scow on the end of the session. We'll talk about the legislation that went through. Minister Nixon with a big announcement this week, another one helping seniors in healthcare. But first, let's welcome in the Premier to chat with her. Premier of the session. It takes a lot out of all of you. I know there's so much going on. Thanks for joining us to talk a little bit about it.
You bet, my pleasure.
Hey, let's start with the Health Statutes Amendment Act. Rather than review all of the bills that went through, I'll talk to Minister Scow about that. But this one meant a lot to you. What are some of the highlights of that bill as we aim to improve healthcare for Albertans?
Well, it really is the last piece of the refocusing, and all the heavy lifting has now been done. We've got 4 dedicated agencies that are overlooking a different aspect of healthcare. One, of course, primary care. We want to get everyone connected to a family doctor, nurse practitioner, mental health and addiction, to get folks into recovery and to start building out the remaining of those recovery units and our recovery first approach. Assisted living and social services is taking responsibility over the folks who need to have extended long-term care. And then acute care is going to be allowing our hospitals to be hospitals again. So we're building up surgical capacity. We're going to allow for something we're calling dual practice. So we'll continue to allow for our public health care guarantee to ensure no one ever has to pay out of pocket for medically required care. But there is a lot of elective surgeries that people have been waiting a long time on waiting lists for. And some people have an appetite to pay out of pocket. So we're going to allow doctors to practice in both systems, so that on the one hand, they'll be required to continue giving us the same level of care that they have in the past. But on the hours where they haven't been able to get dedicated operating room time and want to take on paid patients, they'll be able to do that too. We think that this is going to be the way to preserve the public system, expand access, and make sure that everybody gets the care they need within a medically reasonable period of time.
Excellent. And I'll cover many of the other bills with Minister Scow here in a few minutes. He mentioned Minister Nixon. We'll talk to him as well. But let's get your thoughts on the assisted living announcement with him this week. Boy, he's been doing a lot of heavy lifting lately.
He sure has. One of the things we knew we needed to do to improve patient flow was get a clear idea of who was occupying hospital beds. And it took us a long time. We didn't have really great data when we first started. It actually took Minister Nixon having the authority over that area starting in September 1st to, number one, find out how many beds we were paying for in community and how many were open, and how many were occupied. And then number two, find out how many people were waiting in a hospital bed for placement. And so we got all of that data. And I'm just pleased to report that in our 16 major hospitals where we had some really serious problems, some of our hospitals had 40% of their acute care beds occupied by people who should have been in some other type of alternative level of care. So we've managed to get that number down to less than 1,000 beds occupied, and we're going to keep on going. We had 7 people who were in hospital for 1,000 days or more, a combined total of 18 years. And now those beds are going to be available for people who are coming in for emergency needs or for surgical needs. One of the issues we've had is an underinvestment by Alberta Health Services in building out that continuing care model for those long-term care beds. So we announced a major investment that will allow us to build 1,500 beds per year for probably the next 10 years in order to be able to keep up with that aging population. So I'm pretty excited about the work that he's doing. I think it's going to make a major difference to those who want a more home-like environment to age in place. And then it's going to ensure that we've got the acute capacity we need to take care of those who have those urgent medical needs.
Okay. Hey, speaking of investment, everybody's talking about the Memorandum of Understanding with Ottawa and whether a pipeline will get built, when it will get built. You've got critics saying it won't, others saying give it time. While that's happening, what is happening is investment is coming back to the province, which is what you said would happen if Ottawa addressed the bills that you asked them to.
Yeah, 9 bad laws. There were 9 laws that were just crippling to our investment climate. And I look at it as a lost decade. It's sad to think of all of the missed opportunity that we had. But you know what? If we can start a new relationship and a new path forward with a fresh start and start seeing some early returns of investor confidence, I think that counts as a positive. Canada has more work to do to convince us that this is a new path and a new direction, and they're going to live up to their commitments. But by getting rid of the net zero power regs, we're already hearing Capital Power say that that is one of the major reasons why they'll be feeling confident to invest in more natural gas power generation, which of course is critical to building out AI data centers. We knew it would be. We're hearing that there are many other companies that are looking at doing that same kind of investment. You may have to do a future interview with Affordability and Utilities Minister Nate Neudorf to get an idea of just how much enthusiasm there is there. But also on the emissions cap, we knew it was a production cap, because if you have aggressive emissions targets that have to be achieved in 2030 or 2035, the only way to achieve them would have been to shut in production. So who's going to invest in expanding production in that circumstance? So they sent a signal in the budget that they were going to be doing that. They committed in our MOU that they were not going to implement the emissions cap. And I think whether it's a new bitumen pipeline to Asian markets, or whether it's an expansion of the TMX line, or whether it's an expansion of the Enbridge main line, or whether it's a new line using the Keystone assets through South Bore or something else, those are the kinds of projects that now can potentially go ahead. And I guess the proof will be in the coming months to see whether those open seasons, as the pipeline companies like to call it, whether they get fully subscribed. But I'm pretty optimistic that we're going to see some really early new investment.
All right. Listen, a question on finances. The budget will be announced at some point, and I think everybody's preparing for the fact that it won't be a good budget, but compared to the rest of the country, I guess you could say Alberta's doing pretty well. Case in point, job numbers just released across the nation. Alberta has created more than half of the jobs in the country, so tough financial times, but some good news there.
Well, I would say one of the things to remember is the vision of Peter Lougheed. He always wanted us to have a diversified economy. And I think we now do. When you look at the fact that we're leading job creation, leading GDP growth, leading the wage growth, highest average weekly earnings, our unemployment rate is going down dramatically, including youth unemployment rate. We've got jobs in everything from oil and gas and the new sectors around energy to tourism, to agri-food processing, to tech and innovation, aeronautics and aerospace, and a growing and new defense industry. We're really sitting on a cusp, I think, of some major improvements. That being said, our budget still relies very heavily on oil and gas revenues. I inherited that when I came in. I knew it was a problem, which is why I said we've got to keep the investment income in the Heritage Savings Trust Fund to grow a new revenue source. Where I'm pleased to say that we doubled the size of our Heritage Savings Trust Fund. It's now approaching $35 billion, but it needs to be more like $250 billion in order for it to provide that new long-term revenue stream. So that's a long-term strategy. In the meantime, every dollar that WTI is off of 74 costs our treasury $750 million. So you can do the math on that. If we're down below $60, $15 times 750 is a pretty big number. So we're going to look at how we get to a pathway to balance within the next 3 years. It will certainly help that we'll be expanding production over the coming years. It'll certainly help that we've got new investment coming. But let's remember, the lost decade that we had, the 10 lost years, has put us in a situation where our expenses grew faster than our revenues, and now we've got to play some catch up.
Premier, you and I will have a conversation in soon, a year-end interview. I'm looking forward to that, and so to say to everybody watching, we'll have a great conversation on what has happened this year, and we'll get your thoughts on that. However, before I let you go today, can I suggest that maybe you take some downtime over the holidays? Do you have anything big planned? Tell us all you're taking a break, because boy, you've earned it.
Well, I do like to be on standby in case anything comes up. And so I hope that my ministers and my MLAs are able to take a break towards as we get into the Christmas season and into New Year's. I'll take a little bit of time when we come into January, but I always try to spend time with my dearest friends and my parents and siblings. And I've got a number of evenings, I think, planned with some friends that I haven't been able to see for a while. So it's going to be a very festive and fun holiday season.
Merry Christmas to you and David, the entire family, and we'll see you soon.
You bet. Merry Christmas, Bruce.
There is our Premier, Danielle Smith, on the Alberta Update. Well, let's stay with healthcare for a minute. It is a huge part of the government's focus. Of course, you just heard the Premier talking about that. Her focus on improving healthcare for all of Albertans. And here is the Premier and her Minister of Hospital and Health Surgical Services, Matt Jones, with a look at what they are up to and what's on the horizon for Alberta Health.
Whether you've experienced it yourself or through a family member or friend, we all know the challenges facing Alberta's healthcare system. With Alberta's population rapidly growing, aging, and showing up in hospitals with increasingly complex conditions, wait times are too long, frontline staff and patients are frustrated, and too many people are leaving emergency departments without getting the care they need. This is, unfortunately, the state of healthcare in Canada. And while Alberta performs better than other provinces and the national average in many areas, we know it's not good enough. That's why we're moving forward with the Acute Care Action Plan to support our refocused healthcare system.
The Acute Care Action Plan is divided between immediate spending to support and stabilize Alberta's hospital system and our surgical program, alongside a 6-priority framework to ensure it remains sustainable into the future. The immediate investments focus on improving acute care and surgical capacity while improving patient flow, so Albertans can get the care they need when and where they need it. Over the last 10 years, Alberta's hospital capacity has unfortunately shrunk when you tie it to our rapidly growing population. Edmonton and Calgary hospitals in particular are facing significant pressures, often operating at or above 100% capacity. To address these hospital pressures and the needs of future Albertans, we need to build, and we're going to. I'm pleased to share that planning has already started for the construction of 3 new hospital bed towers. 2 will be located in Edmonton at the Misericordia and Grey Nuns hospitals, with a 3rd located right here at the South Health Campus Hospital in Calgary. Once fully built, these 3 hospital towers will add over 1,000 acute care spaces, significantly increasing hospital capacity for Albertans. In addition, to meet the growing demand for specialized newborn care, we're also developing a provincial neonatal intensive care unit strategy to ensure Alberta has the capacity needed to care for our most vulnerable infants.
We know these challenges extend beyond Calgary and Edmonton, and that's why the $1.8 billion Red Deer Regional Hospital redevelopment is underway. This project will add 200 additional beds, 6 new operating rooms, and 2 cardiac catheterization labs, along with an ambulatory building that will provide medical and clinical support services, ambulatory procedures, and diagnostic imaging. This will mean more care closer to home for Central Albertans. We're also expanding regional and community hospital capacity, developing their operating rooms and shelled spaces, and working towards the construction of 8 new urgent care centers across the province. Together, these initiatives will reduce wait times, improve patient outcomes, and relieve pressure on hospitals across Alberta.
But we're not stopping there. Despite performing a record number of surgeries last year and being on track for a new record this year, we still have roughly 80,000 Albertans waiting for surgery, with around 33,000 of them waiting longer than clinically recommended. I'm pleased to announce that we're expanding our surgical program to deliver 50,000 additional procedures over the next 3 years to lower wait times, reduce the backlog, and ensure more Albertans receive their surgeries within clinically recommended timelines. This new investment builds on the success of the Alberta Surgical Initiative, which included $265 million in capital to open new operating rooms, renovate existing surgical spaces, and provide new equipment in hospitals across the province.
Not all patients in hospital beds need to be there. At any given time, roughly 19% of all hospital beds are occupied by patients who've completed their treatment because there isn't a more appropriate community space available. That's why the Acute Care Action Plan includes working with the Minister of Assisted Living and Social Services and the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions to invest in expanding continuing care and mental health supportive living spaces, ensuring Albertans receive the right care at the right time and in the right place. This includes immediate investments in mental health beds with 12 new psychiatric beds. In addition, 30 beds, sometimes used as temporary psychiatric beds, will now be funded as dedicated psychiatric beds. We'll be sharing some big news soon about expanding continuing care spaces across the province as well. These additional community health spaces will help transition patients out of hospitals, freeing up essential acute care beds and improving emergency department flow.
Since taking on this role, I've had the opportunity to visit hospitals across the province, to meet with frontline staff, leadership teams, and Albertans. Their feedback will guide our work to implement the 6 key priorities of the Acute Care Action Plan. The first priority is capital readiness. A long-term capital plan will be developed through a 50-year provincial plan. This strategy will more appropriately balance community and hospital investment to meet the evolving needs of Albertans. The second priority is emergency health services modernization. We will empower paramedics to spend more time responding to emergencies and less time waiting at hospitals. Additionally, we will improve ambulance response times with new vehicles, better dispatch coordination, and improve support for rural and remote areas so that help arrives more quickly when and where it's needed. The third priority is expansion of our surgical access. We will use chartered surgical facilities for routine procedures while investing in our hospitals to perform more urgent and complex cases. This will mean we can perform more surgeries with better efficiency and more Albertans getting that surgery on time.
The fourth priority is improved acute care patient flow. Timely discharges and expanded access to continuing care and mental health supportive living will ensure patients are cared for in the most appropriate setting, allowing hospitals to focus on acute patients. The fifth priority is workforce resilience. Alberta's healthcare system depends on the people who work in it. One of our key areas of focus is creating a long-term workforce plan and strengthening workforce flexibility so that health professionals are working where and when they are most needed. We are committed to developing a world-class healthcare system through attracting and retaining a world-class health workforce. The sixth priority is emergency department diversion. This will involve the expansion of primary care, urgent care, and community care access. We will also expand virtual care and develop a triage portal to help guide patients to the most appropriate care more quickly and effectively. Through this improved patient flow, we will make the acute care system more efficient and improve patient experience for Albertans.
As you can see, the Acute Care Action Plan will build capacity and put patients at the center of our refocused health system.
We are making these important changes to our acute care system to ensure it works better for patients, families, and frontline providers alike. Albertans deserve nothing less.
Well, the legislature sitting just wrapped up, and one of the busiest guys during that time is the Minister of Jobs, Economy and Immigration, Jobs, Economy, Trade and Immigration. That's Joseph Scow, because Minister Scow is also the House Leader, which means, Minister, you're responsible for the legislation, the coordinating of it, and everything else that's happening in the House. So I know it's been a busy stretch. Thanks for taking some time to join us today.
It's great to be with you, Bruce.
Hey, let's task you with a real tough one for the first question. Can you give us a wrap on the session? You know, some of the major highlights, I guess, the important bills that passed for Albertans. How did you see things?
Sure. Well, we had the Alberta Priorities Act, which absolutely made sure that the federal government is not infringing on provincial jurisdiction when signing international trade agreements. And that, I think, is so important because the Premier has made this point clear from the beginning that she will defend Alberta and defend Alberta's best interests from intrusion, particularly from Ottawa. We've also used the notwithstanding clause on Bill 9, the Protecting Alberta's Children Act, which I think really sent a message that nothing is going to stop us from making sure that parents remain the primary caregivers of the children, that they're well involved with their children's education, and as well as making sure that we're reserving adult decisions for kids when they become adults, and making sure that kids, young girls, even into the post-secondary level of sport, aren't being forced to compete against biologically stronger males. So these are just a couple of the pieces of legislation that we're very happy about. We're also set up legislation to help us with an Alberta provincial police force, with the sheriffs. We need to make sure that Albertans feel safe in their homes, and that when they call 911, particularly in rural Alberta, that someone shows up. And the police are doing a wonderful job in our province, but it never hurts to augment their services. So we're very excited about that, and big shout out to Minister Ellis for all his work. But it's been a long session, and we finished yesterday, wrapped up on Wednesday afternoon. Started back in October, or rather started back in October. Sorry, I'm losing track of what time is. And now heading into Christmas, happy about all the work we did with the 14 bills you passed.
Yeah, you know, the Premier and I chatted just before you came on. We were talking about some of the work in healthcare. She's thrilled with that, with what she's doing with Minister Nixon as well. I guess it's tough to say one bill is more important than the other. I just want to ask in general, anything else we didn't touch on that you think is pertinent to what we might have covered?
I think you're right on the dual practice piece with healthcare. Albertans have a contract with the government when they pay their taxes. They expect to get access to services in the medically recommended time frame. And that's what this is going to help do. This is going to help us keep supporting Albertans, getting the surgeries, getting a family doctor. And the NDP is really quite up in arms about this because, well, who the heck knows why? I mean, they spent hours debating why, but none of it really made sense. But what I can say is I really applaud the Premier and all of our ministers of health as we refocus healthcare in Alberta and make sure that Albertans have access to services that they deserve.
Yep, absolutely. Look, critics always raise a two-tiered system as a concern, and I heard you communicate it 1,000 times in the Premier as well. This is about better access for Albertans. Hey, some job numbers came out recently. This is your ministry in particular. You've got to be wearing this like a badge of honor. I know you're not entirely responsible, but at the same time, the work you do impacts these numbers. More than half of the jobs created in Canada were right here.
You're 100% right, Bruce. I think there's a common misunderstanding that governments create jobs, and we don't. Governments create a regulatory environment and a framework where private sector can come in and they can create private sector jobs. And that's what we're really celebrating here, because this is just under 29,000 new jobs in the month of November, I apologize, alone. This is a huge win for the province because it also indicates that we're still leading the country in job growth. In fact, in November, we created more than 50% of the jobs in Canada altogether. So we've outpaced the rest of the provinces combined. Huge win for us, but it also shows that Alberta is on the right track when it comes to investment. We have been signaling to industry since 2019, since we took over government from the NDP and the Socialists, that we are going to create a business-friendly environment. And thanks to the work from Minister Jones, my predecessor, my department, the ministry, and of course the leadership of the Premier, and now we're seeing the numbers are coming through, and the best is yet to come. I mean, these are numbers that year over year, we've seen over 100,000 new jobs in the province, and we're going to keep the ball rolling here. It's great. 2026 is a big year for us.
Any trends, Minister, that you watch for that you may have noticed here that we can focus on or look for going forward?
Yeah, another number there's so many numbers to keep track of, but a big one for us is youth and unemployment. This is something that all provinces are dealing with, but we're taking real concrete action to make sure we're investing in youth employment, getting that first important piece of getting that first job experience. So we use the youth hiring incentive. We partner with a company called Careers, and we've got $8 million invested in that program. And so as a result of the work we've done, both to Careers, but more so leading up to this, we've seen a decrease of the youth unemployment by 7% since I believe it's June. That is a huge win for the province of Alberta. It's a huge win for youth. But again, 2026 is going to keep going in the right direction for us when it comes to youth employment and general employment across the province, because people are building in Alberta. People are moving here for opportunity. So we're very excited.
You had better be taking a break with your family. You going to the ski hill? Are you going to do anything fun over the holidays?
Might have a nap, but otherwise going to eat some delicious, unhealthy food over Christmas, get some rest, and then come back and keep working for Alberta in the new year.
And you'll do it again. Minister, thank you for all you do, and thanks for doing this.
Absolutely. Take care, Bruce. Thanks.
The Minister of Jobs, Economy, Trade, and Immigration, Joseph Scow, on the Alberta Update. Next up is the Minister of Assisted Living and Social Services. That is Jason Nixon. Good day, Minister.
Good day, Bruce. Good to see you. Thanks for having me on today.
You too. Listen, if people at home only knew that between you and Minister Scow, we got about 14 or 15 feet covered in height. We got the two giant ministers on today. Hey, it's been a busy session. Minister Scow was highlighting some of the bills that we went over. I want to talk to you about a few of those, but let's start with your assisted living announcement. You have been doing, as the Premier said earlier in the program, a lot of heavy lifting. So tell us more about your latest moves and how it will help Albertans.
Well, one of the things that we found as we began to refocus the healthcare system was that one of the reasons we see large surgery wait times and pressure inside the emergency room is because people are in acute care that don't need to be in acute care. They still need care, but they are ending up inside hospital or acute care taking up beds because the system had not developed proper assisted living and continuing care facilities and capacity. And so we've been really, really focused on getting individuals out of the hospital and into appropriate care, which is getting better care for them, better care for our parents and our grandparents and other people that do need care, but also then freeing up important acute care capacity so that they can do the surgeries they need to and be able to help save people's lives. And so yesterday, the Premier and I announced that we're going to invest the most largest capital investment in continuing care in the history of the province, billions of dollars over the next 15 years to create, next 10 years, I should say, to create 15,000 to 20,000 more spaces in the continuing care system. We started it yesterday with our first $400 million investment, which is going to, again, create thousands of units over the next calendar year, creating more homes and making our healthcare system work better, which is the number one goal I know of the Premier.
You bet. Seniors specifically, go ahead and add a little depth to that if you like. How does it help our seniors?
Well, what's happening to our poor seniors is they end up in a spot where they're going to need care in their later years. So they have to go to the hospital to get that care. And Alberta Health Services created no other avenue except for hospital. And so now you have your grandparents or your parents having to go to the emergency room to get later in life care, which is more expensive and not as good for those seniors. In fact, we know that seniors deteriorate by 15% a day when they're in an acute care bed. So by making this capacity, keeping up with both our population growth and our aging rates, we have a very fast aging rates right now in the province of Alberta. We're creating a safe place for the people that built our province and making sure at the same time that our healthcare system runs good. So that's where the biggest impact is. We want to make sure that those who built our province have a place to go when they need help and are not stuck in hallways inside emergency rooms.
Listen, it's a huge investment. You touched on some of the numbers. Run that by me again. How much is the province contributing? This will be significant.
Yeah, so over the next 10 years, we'll be putting billions into this space, creating at least 1,500 more units a year. And we announced yesterday that we're going to do our first 400 million of that this year, which is rolling out as we speak. And that'll create this year about 3,000 more spaces between what we're already building and this new announcement. So it gives you an idea of the scale. But we're about to have 1 million seniors in Alberta. And so we really got to catch up and make sure that we're there, because in the end, it's just going to make healthcare better for all Albertans.
Can you give us some updates while we have you on housing in general? It's part of your ministry, of course. You've done a lot on it.
Look, we're the bright star in housing in this country. Housing ended up being one of the greatest affordability crises in Canada. We were seeing rent rates flying through the roof, challenges for individuals just being able to buy a house if they wanted to enter the housing market. We're really proud of what we did. We ignored the left-wing philosophy, which was to bring in things like rent control and other things that would have stopped construction, made things more expensive long-term, and really damaged our communities. Instead, we focused on removing the barriers to building homes, removing red tape, working with our municipalities to create a situation to make the market work. And we now are 12% of the Canadian population responsible for 25% of all new housing starts anywhere in the country. We're the only place where rent is going down. And this is really added to the Alberta advantage. To be able to make sure that we can continue to get workers that we need into our economy, places like healthcare that we've just been talking about, and making sure they have houses that are going to be affordable for them. And we are the envy of places like Vancouver and Toronto, wish for many reasons that they were Alberta, but housing is one of the biggest reasons.
You know, Minister Scow would have loved to hear that answer. He just mentioned the job numbers, creating more than half of the jobs in Canada right here in Alberta. Let's go off the grid from your ministry. I want to ask you about this. The Memorandum of Understanding that we signed with Ottawa. You've got people on one side saying it's not going to go far enough, and people on the other side saying it's the best thing since sliced bread. We have already seen an attraction in investment. And at the same time, I know you'll keep at Ottawa. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first, I want to be clear. I mean, nobody in this government, and certainly not our premier, is going to just take Ottawa's word for it. As she has said, she used the great Ronald Reagan quote, "We'll trust, but we're going to verify." And we are working diligently to verify. We expect Ottawa to hold up their agreement. If they don't, we would take action to defend this province. But at the end of the day, we spent a lot of time in the MOU talking about pipelines. And pipelines are a big issue, and we need to continue to talk about it. But I want to take you back to other aspects of the MOU, which was removing what we call the production cap. The federal government would call it an emission cap, but really what that did was just hindered the development of things like our oil and gas industry in this province, but other things, including agriculture and forestry and other really critical industries, as well as the electricity standards, which were essentially shutting down our economy. And with those changes alone, in this memorandum of understanding the Premier's been able to negotiate, that is opening us up to billions of dollars of more investment. And we just saw the other day that Capital Power, as an example, just announced billions of dollars in investment in Alberta, specifically because of what has been negotiated in this memorandum of understanding. So we have to take this seriously. We have to hold the Fed's feet to the fire, but we need to also celebrate what the Premier's accomplished. I have to tell you, as a former environment minister in Alberta, I never thought that we would come to see a day where we were able to get rid of that production cap. I was the minister when it came in, and I can tell you it could have, if it was fulfilled, cost 150,000 jobs across this country. And Premier Smith has been able to overcome that. That is a massive accomplishment.
That is great context. That's why I asked you. Now, a tough question before you go. What are you doing for the holidays? Are you going to take that family of yours and enjoy a ski hill or something? What do you got planned?
You know, Bruce, I always say this. I live in the most beautiful place in the world, west of Sundre, Alberta, up in the mountains. And I spend so much time in Edmonton. When I finally get a holiday, there's no need to travel anywhere but there. So I think I'm going to go home and enjoy my wife and kids and the community that we live in and have a great Christmas. And I hope everybody else gets an opportunity to do the same.
Appreciate all your work, Minister. Thank you.
You bet. See you later, Bruce.
There's Jason Nixon, the Minister of Assisted Living and Social Services in Alberta. Our Minister of Tourism and Sport, that is Andrew Boychenko, announced an all-around, he had a great all-around announcement this week. It was the all-season resorts announcement. That's what I was trying to get to. He also put out a video along with this announcement to explain what it's about, what's happening in that ministry, and the good news for Alberta. And here is Minister Boychenko.
Our government is working to grow tourism to $25 billion by 2035. And today, we're taking a major step toward that vision. Castle Mountain, Nakiska, and Fortress have been designated as the first all-season resorts areas, helping revitalize Alberta's legendary ski resorts while minimizing the impact on the environment. These resorts are proud pieces of Alberta's heritage, having inspired entire generations of athletes and outdoor enthusiasts, hosting world-class events like the 1988 Olympics and serving as the backdrop for blockbusters like The Revenant and Inception. For decades, red tape has restricted that resort's operations to winter alone and limited their ability to simply maintain their existing facilities, preventing Albertans from enjoying public lands all year round. By enabling the restoration and improvement of these iconic ski resorts, we're championing Premier Peter Lougheed's vision for Alberta's Rockies. This means making it easier for people to stay and play all year round, ensuring future generations can continue to access and enjoy these beautiful areas. So, what are the next steps? Well, before any development moves forward, prospective developers are required to consult with Indigenous communities and conduct public engagement. They must submit detailed applications to the all-season resort regulator and reflect Alberta's commitment to environmental excellence, sustainable tourism, and creating a stronger, more prosperous Alberta. By revitalizing Alberta's legendary ski resorts, we are striking the right balance of economic growth and environmental stewardship.
Alberta's government has designated its first all-season resort areas, and it is encouraging to see ongoing engagement between our nations and our proponents. When these resorts respect our land and work in true partnership with our communities, they create real opportunities for Indigenous peoples. The communities that support economic development, nurture leadership, and share our culture.
Last year, Albertans spent $1.2 billion more in BC than British Columbians spent here. Dollars that could be supporting our Albertan towns, local businesses, and the families who rely on a strong visitor economy.
We expect the province to continue to its commitment to upholding treaty rights and honoring traditional practices, protecting the land, and keeping an open dialogue with our communities.
These enabling regulations finally create the conditions to change that, bringing new investment, good jobs, and year-round resort opportunities back into Alberta communities. It supports responsible growth while protecting the natural landscapes that Albertans hold near and dear to their hearts.
All-season destinations are all about serving community and building community. The new all-season policy will bring both social and economic opportunities to Alberta.
We look forward to continuing these conversations and working together to ensure all seasons resorts help Indigenous people take the lead role in Alberta's visitors economy. Ishnias, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Ishnias.
So please stay tuned for more information on alberta.ca.
What a beautiful province to call home. It is, Alberta, certainly. There's Minister Boychenko and some of the work going on in this fabulous province. Well, that about does it for the Alberta Update this week. And we've been bringing you this every week, of course, as the Alberta Legislature has been sitting. They are now going to take a break, so we will as well. I will have a year-end interview with the Premier, which we will air for you. We'll talk about all the things the government's been up to over the past year, and I'll ask her for her thoughts on that, and we'll take a look ahead to the next year as well, so watch for that in the next couple of weeks. And before we go, we thought we would leave you with some shots from some video from the Christmas tree and lights light up at the Alberta Legislature, so beautiful up there, and also McDougall Centre, where Paul Brandt joined the Premier and the team to put the lights on in Calgary. Really is a beautiful time of the year, and we want to say thank you for being with us throughout the year, and we want to say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you and your family, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.
Well, we light the tree tonight. We have a shining symbol of our province that will drive out the gloom and bring joy to everyone who sees it all throughout the Christmas season.